Welcome and thank you for being here today. We'd like to acknowledge the land. We gratefully acknowledge that the ancestral land on which we work are within the traditional territories of the Saanich peoples. A couple of housekeeping rules. There is water underneath your seat for everyone. It's a warm day, obviously, so that helps. Washrooms are located at the east entrance in the building. There's also some portable washrooms out here to the north, and obviously there's more washrooms on the inside. Please, if you haven't already, turn your phones to silent or airplane mode. If this place ends up being too warm for anyone, there is a live stream in the main fairground hall. For those that are standing and would like to sit, the main hall is air conditioned. There will be a reception that follows the ceremony in the fairground hall in the Cedar Room. There will be a guest book located at the reception. Please take time to sign it for the family. There will be an open mic at the reception as well. People are encouraged to share their favorite forest stories when we go next door. There will be food and refreshments provided. We might have to change a couple of the orders of how this all goes today, but we're hoping to do something very special at 1444 or 244, just depending how the program goes. We'd also like to acknowledge and thank the wonderful firefighters from the Saanich Fire and North Saanich Fire departments who are graciously covering the calls for the Central Saanich Fire Department so that their members could all attend today. My name is Spencer Loyson, and we got to meet Forrest about 20 years ago when our kids had signed up for hockey to play out here on the peninsula, and quickly struck up a great friendship with him. Wonderful, wonderful man. He was always involved, as many of you know, with coaching and mentoring, coaching kids, mentoring coaches, and just helping out all around for lacrosse and hockey, and also at the schools. So we're all very, very grateful for that. I got a note from our oldest son, Nathan. It says here, when I first heard the news, I was gutted. I was fortunate to be around Forrest growing up in the Central Saanich community. He was heavily involved in coaching my brother Nicholas and I for many years. And as we grew older, he always took time just to chat with the boys in the foyer, whatever, at the rink, at school. He always had time for them. My thoughts go out to Anita, Trevor, Jason, and the rest of the Owens family. Thank you for being a true role model to myself and to so many other kids in our community. Rest in peace, Forrest. At this time, I'd like to call up Elder May Sam for a prayer and blessing.
Good afternoon, my dear ones. First of all, I want to thank the family for your request for a blessing for today, for your loved one, also a blessing for each and every one of you, especially the volunteers today. Haichka. I'm very proud to be here for your loved one. It's very hard to lose your mate. I'm going to ask you to be really strong for the missus and the children and the grandchildren. And I want you to be prepared, because the little children will be asking for Grandpa one day. And you have to be strong for when that happens. I want to say haichka to this wonderful man, Forrest, for his dedication, his hard work and determination, with all the love in the world for him to be there for everyone within our communities, helping our children. Lacrosse and hockey, and also being there in our communities. He helped so many people, and that love is not forgotten. And also with me today is my son, Rob. He's going to drum, sing a song, and my granddaughter, Tanya. She'll also sing a song after I do the opening prayer and blessings for you to bless the grounds that we're here today. And I always do my prayer in my language first. It's so important for the Creator to hear the blessing in my language. And then I try to translate it in English. Sometimes I forget the most important part in English, but I want you to know that I've seek the blessings for you today. Haichka. Chunamix nask man seit manas seit is under sprays lodlum stay. Masi haichka titel siem the things eyes. Haichka the mug e titel namat eat nachach and tamoch eat nach Saanich tamoch masi haichka. Now we see Guam comes to the mug easily hatlos at Nasquail, the matmanas, the emas, is the stalamos. Guam comes to Zichumi Lalamit. Is the mug e titel namat eat na tamoch masi haichka the mug. Slachen stuche the chach and stewie mug squaily mug snit. Guam comes to the squalawan. Zichumi Lalamit, the mug easily. I praise and I thank the Creator for a blessing for today, to give you the strength and healing in each and every way, to bless the family, give them strength, the children and the grandchildren. A blessing for each and every one here today, to give you strength also, to take care of each and every one in each and every way, taking care of each and everyone, our loved ones, to give you a helping hand in your daily work, and to be going home and being with your family. I pray that you have a healing in your heart when you go home. Haichka, thank you each and every one, Hitana Saanich Tamoch, the land that we walk on here in Saanich. Masi Haichka. I praise and thank the Creator for a blessing from my heart to your heart, to give you strength in each and every way, taking care of family. Haichka. Kunimix nask man say timanas say to Sanders praise Lotlam's day. And I want you to know from my heart to your heart that I love you. And I always express this when I do a blessing. I send my love to each and every one, especially the family today, for strength for you with all the love. Precious memories here today. Haichka.
First of all, my condolences to the family, Stotless, his mate, and Manas, his children, all the rest of the co-workers, firemen, and condolences to each and every one of you. Quite a while back, when I first met Forrest, I was just a little guy. First time putting the cross gear on, and he was in the older division. And I was like, wow, this guy was huge. And that's the way he carried on his life. I've known him a little bit in the cross. He was always in the older division, but I remember seeing him play. And then later on, we established a relationship with communications with our communities. He was always so willing to help. He was there for anybody that needed that help, whether it was just a fire hydrant or if it was more. He was there and he cared. I really thank the family for sharing him with our communities throughout his life. And just wrap up with one more prayer song. And this song that's given permission by late Chief Dan George from the Squamish Nation. Right, you got.
Ho, hoo, ho. Hoo, ho, ho, hey. Ho, hoo, ho. Hoo, ho, ho, hey.
Rajka. Rajka Sim.
Sign of the cross here before we
Okay.
leave.
Thank you, Elder May Sam. Next up, there'll be a firefighter's prayer. We're calling on Brian McAdam, chaplain of the Central Saanich Fire Department.
Good afternoon. I'm truly honored and blessed to have served with and trained under Assistant Fire Chief Forrest Owens. I will now read the firefighter's prayer. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me strength to save a life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling, to give the best in me, to guard my friend and neighbor and protect their property. And if according to your will I must answer my last call, bless with your protecting hand my family, one and all.
Thank you, Brian. Next up will be a eulogy from Steve Serbic, the Fire Chief of the Esquimalt Fire Department.
My name's Steve Serbic. Forrest Owens was my friend. When the family finished the eulogy and Anita asked me to read it, she asked me, "Can you do it?" And I said, "I can do it, Anita, because Forrest will be up there standing right beside me." And she said, "Steve, I'm super sorry. He's going to be sitting with me." So I'm up here by myself, so bear with me. Forrest was one of a kind. As you will hear from many others today, he was a kind and gentle human being who loved deeply and cared for everyone he met. He was loved by so many and will live in our hearts and our stories forever. Forrest was born in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, to Andy and Sharon. He was the oldest of four. His brothers are Todd, predeceased in 2020, Andy Jr., and Elliot. His father, Andy, stepmother, Donna, and brother Todd moved to Vancouver Island and lived in a few places in Greater Victoria before settling into a home on the Pat Bay Highway near Island View Road in central Saanich. The peninsula was where Forrest would spend the rest of his youth and where he would raise his own children. He loved life in the peninsula, a great community and great people with a charming small town feel where everyone knows everyone. Or did everyone just know Forrest? Because everywhere that guy went, somebody knew him. Forrest attended Mount Newton High School and Claremont Senior Secondary. School was easy for Forrest. He was very smart and always did well. He loved the challenge and he loved to learn. He originally wanted to be a marine biologist or an oceanographer, and even in the later years would talk about how great it would have been to pursue that. He loved the ocean, and so did his father, who was a commercial fisherman. Forrest loved sports as well. He played hockey and lacrosse and coached many teams, even before he had kids. After he graduated from high school, he got married to Gail. He was one of the first of his friends to marry. Their first home was on Tyndale Avenue in Gordon Head. Soon after, their two children, Sean and Courtney, came along. Forrest took an apprenticeship and became a journeyman carpenter. He was a talented carpenter and built their first family home on Walser Place in central Saanich. A lot of great memories there were had, including the legendary Seahawks Sundays. Forrest worked for Dick Gibson and then Steve Butler, learning the construction trade well. After a few years, Forrest started his own business, Forrest Owens Construction, building many custom homes that he was tremendously proud of. And he would go around showing his family all the houses and construction projects he worked on or built. A couple of memorable projects were rebuilding Deep Cove Chalet and the wine cellar there. Another big job that he was involved in was Spence's Bridge in the interior of British Columbia. Forrest was always involved in a number of things, both with his family and with his community. He coached Sean's hockey, lacrosse, and enjoyed watching Courtney dance and entertain everywhere she went. He was a member of each hockey and lacrosse association, taking on various roles over the years, from coach to treasurer to safety coordinator. In 1986, after years of convincing from his best friend, Barry Eastgate, Forrest joined the Central Saanich Volunteer Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter. He was dedicated right from the start. He loved serving the community and learning new things. He also enjoyed the perks of being on the department. For example, after they sold the Walser Place home, Forrest purchased a 4-acre property on East Saanich Road. Forrest wanted to get rid of some of the stuff that was in the shed. The previous owner left it full to the brim with all this garbage. So Forrest, rather than dispose of it properly, he thought he'd just set it on fire. So Forrest lit a match, set the shed on fire, and everything was going well until it became a raging inferno and things in the shed started to explode. He phoned Barry in a panic and asked him to bring the fire truck over to help him extinguish the massive fire. But don't tone it out, Forrest said, because he would never live it down in the fire department. Barry always enjoyed telling the story of arriving with the fire truck and the hilarious sight of Forrest standing there in the middle of this massive fire, holding this tiny garden hose with a little bit of water coming out of it, making absolutely no difference at all in this massive fire. Actually, he took a picture of it that you'll see in the slideshow. With the truck there, they quickly extinguished the fire and all was good again. But that was not the last fire Forrest would have. One time coming down East Saanich Road, he could see smoke billowing up into the sky. He thought to himself, kind of looks like my area, where my place is. His whole field was on fire. Forrest and Gail parted ways. I'm not sure why, but it might have been because Forrest kept burning shit down. But they remained friends and shared in the raising of their 2 children. The property on East Saanich was sold, and Forrest moved into the suite above his mom and dad's back on Pat Bay Highway. Forrest started working at Central Saanich Public Works. It was an opportunity for him to gain experience and new skills, and also to put good use to all the years he had in construction. And Forrest said the municipal job was way better having to chase people down to pay you as a business owner. While working at Central Saanich, Forrest met Anita. She was a payroll clerk at Municipal Hall, and on a hockey trip, he told Courtney he met this woman at work, and she gave him butterflies, and he wanted to ask her out. At first, Courtney thought it was kind of cute, then a little awkward, and then she realized it was her dad, and it was totally gross. He would come up to the Municipal Hall on multiple occasions with supposed problems with his paycheck. Anita didn't know it at the time, but all these problems were just excuses to come by and see her. She wondered what was the problem with his paycheck. Why was he having such a challenging time understanding this simple paycheck, no matter how many times she explained it to him? He finally mustered up enough courage to ask Anita out. Not enough courage, however, to ask her out in person, but rather he called her from the Public Works office. He asked her if she would like to go to the fire department annual banquet. Little did Forrest know at the time, Anita was unsure of which of the 2 Forrests, yes, there were 2 Forrests working at the works yard, was on the phone. So through some sleuthing, she figured out which Forrest it was, and she called him back. She made him sweat a little bit before she did it. While at that banquet with Forrest, Anita realized this was the man she would marry. He was the one. From that night on, they would see each other often, and they fell fast in love. They would go out for lunch during the workday as often as they could, but were so smitten with each other, they wouldn't even remember to order food. And when they did order food, it never got eaten. The waitstaff would always look at them oddly and ask if there was anything wrong with the food. But Forrest and Anita just wanted to be together, talk, laugh, and dream about the future. It was the start of a beautiful love story. 3 months later, they were engaged and married the following year. They purchased a home together on Seamont Close in Saanich and started what would be a wonderful life together. Forrest and Anita had 2 children, Trevor and Jason. And the 6 of them enjoyed becoming a family together with Gail, whom Anita loves and cherishes as her friend and the mother of Sean and Courtney. It was a great life together, full of more hockey and more fun times, all with Forrest leading the way. Forrest continued to work at Public Works. He worked hard and had fun, both at home and at the yard, and there were times where Forrest would come home and tell of the work he was doing and some of the shenanigans he would partake in. Like the time he rigged it so when the driver of the municipal vehicles applied the brake, the horn would go off. Or the time he got into the flush truck and somehow changed the electric brake to off when it was really on and on when it was really off. And the fire hall was the same. Fun Forrest would be at it again, making it so a new recruit got up into that driver's seat to check the truck and all the lights and sirens would start going off. He was very discreet in his tricks. He always laid low to see how things unfolded. When he got hired full-time, he made it so all the computer desktops showed upside down. Anita showed him that trick. After having kids, Anita stayed home until there was an opportunity to take a temporary position in the district of Saanich. The boys were not in full-time school yet, and Forrest had a great idea. He offered to take a year off to be with the boys. Anita wasn't so sure how this would really go, Forrest being at home all day, every day, and she knew how hard and how much chaos it would be tending to 2 young, active boys. But they did it, and it was a great year for Forrest and the boys. All of the parents at the preschool and the elementary school loved Forrest. He was in with the mums too. His time with the boys wasn't without its lessons for Forrest. He learned that permanent marker is permanent, on carpet, on walls, on stairs. He also learned that putting hockey pucks in the microwave, they do burn, and they do leave an awful smell in the house for months. But what Forrest learned mostly is what a treasure and a gift it was to be spending time at home as a dad. However, when he got to go back to work, that was pretty damn good too. Forrest was an avid fisherman. He loved to fish for salmon. He would fish any and every time there was an opportunity. Over the many years he fished, he had various close fishing buddies. Murray Cossack, Mike Ventrate, John Verhagen, Mark Cossack, David Chung, Mike Stutzel, his sons Sean and Jason, and Courtney and Trevor got into the action from time to time as well. Forrest loved to be on the water, and he would take anybody he could out to catch the fish. He loved the hunt. As soon as a fish was in the boat, and after he would have a quick celebration, and then it was getting those lines back down into the water and start that hunt all over again. He knew everything about fishing for salmon. And if he didn't know something, he would find out. And nothing was better than being with Forrest when a fish was on. The absolute joy on his face, and at the same time, a total chaos shit show in the boat that was so infectious. The adrenaline and the rush of it kept Forrest and everybody on the water right with him. Forrest would spend hours testing and trying new ways to tie gear and get the roll just right in the water. He recently tried halibut fishing, and after doing thorough research, testing, trial, and error, he quickly became an excellent halie fisherman. He thought, maybe Salmon Fever, the name of his boat, should have a second name, Halie Fever, or should it be called Fish Fever? Forrest was a legend on the water. Getting a full-time job at the fire department was a dream come true for Forrest. He loved the community so much and was so passionate about the fire service. His background in construction and working at Public Works served him well as his new role as fire inspector. Forrest continued to volunteer at the fire department as well. He had a high attendance as a volunteer and almost never turned down an opportunity to contribute to the fire department in some way. He served on many committees, probably all of them at one time or another, and he would help out in the community with charitable causes and community events. Following the premature death of his best friend Barry, Forrest, along with Barry's dad, Bill Eastgate, and others, led the charge of building the Central Saanich Historical Museum in Barry's honor. Forrest drew up the plans and spearheaded the construction. There were many nights and many weekends over several months it took to construct the museum that Forrest would be found working at after work. He used up all his holiday time that summer to work on the museum, and his family would often go up there to the construction site to see Daddy-O, bring him a meal, and just hang out with him. Forrest attended to many wildfires over the years in the province. They were the longest times that he'd be away from his family and Anita, sometimes for up to 2 weeks. Anita and Forrest were not good at being apart. They would miss each other so much, and each time they would commit after Forrest came back that would be the last time he would go on a deployment because it was just too difficult. But when the call came in, Forrest would be the first to put up his hand and be deployed again. He always wanted to help. Thank goodness they had cell phones because he could communicate with Anita. As a firefighter, Forrest attended many difficult calls and fires that over time took their toll. Forrest knew a lot of people in Central Saanich, and it was hard for him to attend calls that impacted people he knew, family and friends that he loved. He attended to 2 of his kids' car accidents, a couple of house fires of friends, and many, many other calls that broke his heart just a little bit more. He cared deeply for the community, and he wanted to keep everyone and everything safe from harm. Forrest learned that he needed to take care of himself and his mental health. He learned to be a strong man. It meant you had to be vulnerable and ask for help. He learned that it was okay to ask for help. In fact, it was more than okay. Talking about mental health issues became particularly important to Forrest. At home, things were busier than ever. The 2 boys, Trevor and Jason, were into sports. Sean was playing hockey out on the town, and Courtney was keeping everyone on their toes being a teenage girl. Each of the kids carry their dad's personality with them, whether it's his wit, his caring nature, his competitiveness, his smarts, his ability to build relationships, or his gentle way. They each embody him. It was the joy of his life to see them grow up and flourish in the ways that they have. He loved them deeply and was openly affectionate with them. Not a day would go by that he would not say how lucky he was to have such great kids. Every chance he got, he hugged them and told them he loved them. His kids are one of his greatest of his many successes, of which made him so proud. Forrest also had 4 grandchildren, Ethan, Denver, Summer, and Violet, whom he absolutely adored. And then he had those goats, June, Giselle, Donnie, and Cutie. They gave Forrest a lot of joy and a lot of comfort. Forrest retired from his career position of an assistant chief in 2018, aging out at 60. He certainly was not ready to retire, and making that transition was very difficult for him. He didn't want to age out. He didn't want age to determine the end of his firefighting days, so he continued as a paid-on-call chief, taking on regular shifts and duty chief rotations with the chief officers. This was really good for Forrest, as he still had so much left in him to offer. He got involved in other clubs and committees in the community. He was involved in the board of directors with Mount Newton Care Society, which he loved. It was something new, exciting, and it gave him an opportunity to get back to the community in a new way. Forrest was a doer. He was someone you could count on for help. If you asked Forrest for help, he was there. He would always put others first, even if it meant sacrificing himself and his needs. Recently, while in the hospital, he was trying to find a way to help a friend who was having issues with their boat. He literally was saying, I wonder how I can get over there and help him fix his problem while he's lying in a hospital bed. Forrest was optimistic after being diagnosed with cancer. He had a zest for life like no other person I have ever met. Forrest's will to live was incredible. And with Anita and his kids by his side, he started each day full of love and gratitude. Even with a broken pelvis in the hospital bed, the nurses would come in to visit on their breaks to get some Forrest time. They would recharge and go back and finish their day fully energized and empowered to have a great shift. This is who Forrest was. The aura of this man could be felt by people just walking by him. That big heart gave off a massive field of energy and love. Since his cancer diagnosis, not surprisingly, Forrest did an enormous amount of research. He wanted to know the most he could about his diagnosis, his prognosis, and how he could heal himself. Through his journey, he found Dr. Joe Dispenza, an international speaker, writer, and doctor. Forrest loved Dr. Joe, and much of what Dr. Cho taught resonated with Forrest because deep down, it already was who Forrest was. Here's a quote, is just one of Forrest's favorite Dr. Joe Dispenza quotes. When you intentionally make the expression of love a part of your daily practice, this is feeling, receiving, and giving love. Not only do you boost your immune system, but you begin to understand that the more you feel love, the more you become love. And when you become the embodiment of love, you can change the world. When I first met Forrest, I will never forget it. He walked over to me with that big smile he had and shook my hand. And when he shook my hand, I looked at his hand and I said, "Show me your other hand." He lifted up his other hand. He said, "Why?" I said, "I want to make sure that one is not swollen." I said, "Forrest, look at the frickin' size of your hands. You know what they say about guys with big hands?" And with that big smile, and he said, "I know, Steve, they have big hearts." Little did I know at that moment, I was meeting the kindest-hearted human I would ever meet. Forrest helped the fire service in so many ways. But mostly helping others become who they are and to believe in themselves. He was a leader and a mentor to so many. Forrest, your legacy and the human being that you were will live on in everyone you have touched, in your many ways, always with your full heart and soul. Thank you for being the man you were. We will never, ever be the same having lost you. And we will never, ever be the same having the absolute pleasure of knowing you and loving you, and especially being loved by you. We are all blessed to have Forrest in our lives, albeit not even close to long enough. You will be missed more than you'll ever know. Rest easy, Forrest. Rest easy.
Next up was going to be Keith Naninga, the chaplain from the Victoria Fire Department.
Wow, what an awesome eulogy. Anita asked if I would read this verse. I think it's something that well describes Forrest, but we could all live up to a little bit. It's from Philippians 4, verse 5 through 9. It says, "Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next up will be the Fire Chief's address, Ken Mount, Fire Chief of the Central Saanich Fire Department.
Good afternoon. I'm Ken Mount, the Fire Chief for Central Saanich for the past 11 months and 14 days to be precise. At 6:34 last night, the alarms went off for a structure fire when we were preparing for more rehearsal for the work that we had to do here today. With 34 members, 9 apparatus, we had the incident under control with our Peninsula partners by our side. It could turn out that did throw a kink in our plans, but in an interesting way brought us all together as Forrest would want us to. Last November, we sat as a whole department with our life members in Butchart Gardens, and we pulled off a banquet during our pandemic protocols. I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. At this banquet, a presentation was done to recognize the years of service. It was a great honor that I was there to share the moment of 35 years of service with Forrest and Anita. Anita, Sean, Courtney, Trevor, and Jason, family, our sincere condolences from all of us in the fire service. Ministers, MLAs, councillors, commissioners, your worships, elders, fellow firefighters, and members of the community, thank you all for your attendance. It's super evident that 35 years with Forrest in the service has had a huge impact. Forrest was more than an assistant chief to the fire department. He was a caring member of the community and would bend over backwards to help anyone. Influential in the directions, the way things needed to go with the fire department. In fact, a reason I'm standing here today would have the influence of Forrest Owens vouching that the next fire chief would fit in with the team. Standing in front of you all today is something that any chief really does not want to experience the circumstances of, but it's with my honor I have the chance to speak on behalf of the fire department and share the spirit of Forrest and his continuing legacy he will have with us forever. I've been fortunate enough to get to know Forrest in the past year. A few months ago, he was in my office. He was shedding a bit of tears, and he was talking to me about what retirement is. You'd see his passion and his service as we had a few laughs as well. Our discussion was wandering towards the direction of taking some more time off to deal with his illness. The main thing that stuck with me, gave me a bit of laugh was, "Hey, Chief, I want to outdo that Nelson." Forrest served 35 years, and it's hard to comprehend for the next generation of firefighters to put things in perspective. Most paid-on-call fires serve 3 to 5 years. 35 years in the fire service, you can imagine the stories that will be told today. At the banquet after presenting the award last year, in one of the first moments I had, another comment that stuck with me after the presentation was, "Hey, Chief, that Nelson has one up on me." I learned pretty quickly that Deputy Nelson and AC Owens have a unique relationship that goes way back. Forrest was proud of his years of service, and we all looked up to him and respected his experience. He was a person to lend kindness in another person's trouble, a kind person that would always find time to help. I'd watch him with the younger members of the department. They were looking at him for advice. He was an element of stability when the department was going through difficult times. He cared about the fire department, he cared about the community, and he was also distinguished as having one of the strongest and closest relationships with our First Nation partners. Forrest and I would talk about adventures and new travels. Anita, he would often talk to me about getting a used Sprinter van and going traveling around North America with you. Sean, I could feel the pride he had with you as a firefighter. Many of our coffee discussions turned into discussions about you and being with the SkyMalt. And Chief Serbic, he had nothing but kind words of praise and respect for what you're doing to improve the service and would advocate your message of mental health. Forrest, we were not ready for this as a department, but we are more than ready to come together and provide support. We all have our ways of dealing with the grief, and the fire department is still hurting right now. And today is one other step in the process of handling the loss and supporting each other. It's the past that creates images and memories that keep us together, and it's the spirit of our fallen firefighter with these stories that we're told today. Forrest had a past focus on fire prevention. He was a member of our current fire inspection working group. He was instrumental in the implementation of pre-incident planning. And after retiring as a career member, he would still participate and respond to calls as a paid-on-call member. And this is where my relationship really began with him. As firefighters, we are occupational athletes, and we do physically remarkable things, but Forrest did more. With his many years of service, there are so many stories that I've heard in my last 11 months over coffee, training, one-on-one with the crew, past fire events, parties, lacrosse stories, inspections, fishing trips, and I've heard many, but I have a couple to share. Last April, some of you may recall a major wind event that came through Central Saanich and really through Greater Victoria. We had 30 calls that day, from wires down to alarms ringing. One incident, I was supporting the captain with the alarm panel, and the wind gust came as I was opening the door. This was a major gust that knocked me off my feet and I went down hard, rolled along the curb, along the driveway, and came out of it in some sort of combat-style move. I did sprain my wrist, and I was shaking it off. Had a bruised ego, and then another call came in. This call had a tree on a house. About an hour later, I got back to the station, and Captain Severson came to me, a bit of a smile and a smirk, said, "Hey, Chief, you okay? You crashed hard. You know what? You did a Forrest." Well, I learned that there's many moments in the service, and with 35 years of service, I got to know that Forrest had a knack of hitting the ground hard, and even while we were getting ready for procession, someone told me about him falling into a pool once. I guess the last time I saw this actually happen was last year. We were rescuing a deer out of a gate, and when it kicked and got free, right when the gate was opening, the only thing different this time, Forrest went down. It was caught on local news. It's these funnier, finer moments that keep the spirit alive, as Forrest and myself now have this, what I call elite skill of crashing hard. Many of you with your uniforms in here today, if you go down, you'll know that you're crashing in style, and it's deserving of having some ranks. I also have memories of the Halloween fireworks. A lot of time and energy he put into the preparation of this. There were hours of bickering with Captain Little over the fine details of a launch sequence. Forrest and Dan, the two of you together, you really remind me of a couple grade schoolers together on a playground, but you pulled the fireworks off, and there's a major void with this show now. But I have a feeling that this October, the fireworks show will have a whole new meaning. And yet, as firefighters, we have a deep and serious side to what we do for the community, and it's vitally important to our neighbors that we train hard, we go and experience danger, and we pay the price of serving others, just as last night's call was. Firefighting is a great calling, and we today remember Forrest. Remember also how dearly we can pay the price of doing this job. I just look around here today. It shows that Forrest was a leader, and it takes courage to do this job. His guidance right now would not be one of continuing to hurt. We all have been caught in a wave of grief, but we know that it's the right thing to do, that will find the courage to carry us forward and make the fire service even better, as Forrest would want us to. I've been told by the Firefighting Brotherhood that losing a loved one means that new friendships will grow in a time of healing. And while people naturally come together in adversity, we in the firefighting family come together to support our hearts reaching out to the family. One part of this brotherhood that came out to support is our honorary life members. As we prepared for the service, I was provided a tribute that I will recite now. Firefighter, we strive for perfection. Not always possible, we do our best. We train for the next call, sometimes repetitive, we grow as one. We show compassion, sometimes hard, we become one. We smile, we fish, we play, we love life, we together as one. A tribute to Forrest Owens, written by Keith Yeo. Forrest, we did not expect this line of work to take you from us so soon, but you do know that we can thank you from our heart. The department has the love and the respect that comes from 35 years of history to tell you how much we appreciate your time and commitment to the community. You have been left a legacy, and we will always remember you. Forrest possessed all the great stuff of a good man. We are all so proud today, and we can feel your own loving pride. Anita, Sean, Courtney, Trevor, Jason, and family, firefighters and friends, like you, we will always remember. Rest in peace. Number 14, Flo.
Thank you, Ken. Next up from the District of Central Saanich is Ryan Windsor. Mayor, Your Worship.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak about Forrest. And I come as the chief elected representative of our council here in the District of Central Saanich. With me are my colleagues, Councillor Paltiel, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Graham, as well as our CAO, Chief Administrative Officer, Christine Cullum, also members of council not able to be here today, Councillor Thompson, Councillor King, and Councillor Newton. And my great admiration to Mayor Orr and Mayor Cliff McNeil-Smith from North Saanich and Sydney for being here as well, and to MLA Adam Olson, and indeed a representative of our government, Minister Lana Popham, who will speak next. It's sort of difficult to be the one that is elected to the chief elected official role. It has a unique advantage, but also a unique disadvantage. And that is that your interactions with many in the community who are part of our various services, fire service indeed, chief among them, is that your interactions with many of the members are fleeting. What I can say is that I was fortunate to interact with Assistant Chief Forrest Owens on a number of occasions in my, albeit temporary, tenure as mayor. And there would have been at least 6 mayors who preceded me who probably would have experienced a similar sort of scenario where you get to interact with people for short stints, whereas members of the service actually interact on a day-to-day basis, and indeed that informs the stories that we hear from those who were fortunate enough to know an individual like Assistant Chief Forrest Owens. Right at the outset, it occurred to me that my interactions with Assistant Chief Forrest Owens were that this is an individual who had an amazing impact on his community. The fact that this room is full today, and probably many more who would like to be here but couldn't, is a testament to the impact that this larger-than-life individual had. So to the entire family, I would like to say, thank you for sharing this amazing individual with our community. It just so happens to fall to me as mayor to be the one to extend that on behalf of a community of almost 20,000 people, and so many mayors and councillors who came before me who, indeed, Assistant Chief Owens would have served under in his more than 35 years in our community. And because I've been mayor or had the privilege of being mayor for the last 8 years, it fell to me to acknowledge him at his 35 years as well as his 30 years. And it was indeed a true privilege to be able to do that. That photo that is on the stage here with me, I happen to have had the privilege of being standing almost immediately next to this great individual. So again, my sincere thanks to the entire family and to those members of our community who have come to share and express their joy in experiencing and knowing this amazing individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan Windsor, Your Worship. Next up from the province of British Columbia will be Minister Popham, the MLA for Saanich South.
Good afternoon. I feel very grateful to be here today sharing this with all of you. Anita, Sean, Courtney, Trevor, Jason, and the entire family, please accept my most sincere condolences. Today I'm here representing Premier John Horgan and the province of British Columbia. But I'm also here because I was one of the many moms who Forrest entertained at pickup and drop-off at Gingerbread Preschool about 20 years ago. Forrest had a genuine friendliness about him, and I looked forward so much to catching up with him at these times. His clever sense of humor was apparent immediately, and he often had many of us laughing about his take on the daily challenges of parenting. Jason and my son Kai are good friends to this day. Jason, we love you dearly. Kai isn't able to be here this afternoon, but he asked me to pass on his love to the entire family. A Greek historian once said, "The bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what it is before them, glory and danger alike. And yet, notwithstanding, they go out and they meet it." Assistant Fire Chief Owens, you made our province incredibly proud with your willingness to serve bravely in the line of duty. You made our community proud with your generous heart, a full heart that you shared with your family and friends alike. On behalf of the province of British Columbia, thank you for your dedication. And thank you to the Owens family for lending us the greater community, such a wonderful person for so many years. Forrest, we will miss your generous spirit and that famous grin. May you rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Popham. Next, there's going to be a prayer. Jim Atwood, a lifetime member from the Central Saanich Fire Department.
Wow, good afternoon. My name is Jim Atwood, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a lifetime member of the Central Saanich Fire Department, having served 25 years, and most of those with Forrest. I've had the honor of saying grace at our fire department banquets and praying for our firefighters and families. So when Anita asked me to say a prayer for her husband and best friend, it was without hesitation that I agreed. And I hope that you will all find comfort in these words. We had a quick phone conversation, and Anita reminded me that Forrest was not an outwardly religious person per se. And yeah, I knew that. However, we agreed for anyone who knew him well, they could see the spirit within him. In fact, I would say that he had many spiritual attributes, one of which I would like to quickly talk about. Over the past couple of weeks, I've heard many adjectives to describe Forrest. For me, though, the first one that came to my mind was selflessness. In the Bible, the Apostle Paul writes to the church of Philippi, and in Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 to 4, he writes, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in the Spirit, and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." This selfless attitude was evident throughout Forrest's life. As you've heard, he touched many lives of young people through his coaching of minor hockey and lacrosse, his impact in the fire department, our association, and historical society with his countless hours of service and volunteerism was insurmountable. And of course, his love and dedication to his family goes without saying. Sean, Courtney, Trevor and Jason, I always remember the twinkle in his eyes and the puffing out of his chest when he gave me updates on how you were doing and your progress in life. It was amazing. I always wondered when and where he found time for himself. But then one only needs to look at the pictures of this man who struck fear in the hearts of many salmon to know that he did have a happy place. I found a quote online that really struck a chord with me. It said, "Selflessness runs counter to human nature, which is why being selfless is so much more difficult than being selfish." Think about that for a moment. Selflessness runs counter to human nature, which is why being selfless is so much more difficult than being selfish. Now, Jesus was the epitome of selflessness. For all the believers among us, we know of the many examples of Jesus' selfless acts. And it is just one of those many attributes that we try to emulate. Trust me, it's not easy, and many times we fail. When you look back upon some of the things that you do or did in the name of charity and service, ask yourself, why am I really doing this? And who's benefiting most? My fellow man or me? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Forrest was exactly like Jesus. However, as a friend and brother firefighter, it was evident to me that his acts of service benefited others more than himself. To my fellow Central Saanich firefighters, I know that many of you are grieving and finding it difficult to process the passing of Brother Forrest. What I ask of you is to reflect upon the selfless attitude that was a major part of Forrest. Take those memories and let them embody you. For when you can embrace this selfless attitude, you will find that your time and service in the fire service and your service to this community will become more meaningful. Now, will you please join me in a word of prayer? Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day and your love that you bestowed upon us. We thank you for this opportunity to gather as a community to remember and celebrate the life of our brother Forrest. We are most grateful for this gift of Forrest being in our lives. His love and dedication towards family, friends, and community, combined with his selfless attitude, was an inspiration to us all. I pray that each and every one of us here will strive to incorporate this selfless attitude in our daily lives. Lord, there are many heavy hearts among us. We grieve Forrest's passing. The pain of loss can be overwhelming. I pray for your healing hands to touch us and comfort us. Lift this burden from our hearts. I pray for the family. Fill them with your Holy Spirit. Remind them of the love and joy that Forrest brought into their lives, and that he is and always will be a part of themselves. I pray for the Central Saanich Fire Department, the firefighters, leaders, and honorary life members. Provide healing as they come to terms with the loss of their brother, friend, and mentor. Give the leaders guidance in their decision-making. Instill in the firefighters that selfless attitude so that they too can serve this community to the high standard demonstrated by Forrest. And finally, Lord, I pray that you embrace Forrest in your loving arms. Let him know that we love him, that he will be missed, but most of all, we are grateful for his selfless legacy that he has left us with. I pray this all in your loving Son's Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next up from the Central Saanich Fire Department will be Rob Severson, Captain of the Central Saanich Fire Department.
So Forrest, sorry guys, a little loud. He was so many things to so many people here. Everyone will have their own stories, their own memories, and their own moments that are going to make them smile. He always had a pretty big smile, you can see it there. Big mustache to go with it. Always jealous of it, because I just can't grow one. He was the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off the back if you needed it, and that was the truth. I worked with Fo, or Foeman, or Photo, since the start of my time here. Fo, in case you're wondering, is short for Forrest Owens. Foeman, that's pretty straightforward. And then Photo was added when he became the training officer. That's Forrest Owens, training officer. We're a pretty simple group, we're firefighters, so that's what we got. In the years I worked with him, we attended some tragic calls together. But on the other side, we had some pretty funny and great times. So I'm going to share a few with you guys today. And remember, these are just a few. There was a lot. When I think of Fo and what he meant, there's a few things that came to mind instantly. He was extremely passionate about the fire service. Loved it. Career, volunteer, didn't matter. It was just a true passion. He was a great teacher, and he was really thorough. So just in general, a really great person. So when I say he was passionate about the job, whether prevention or training, he believed in and cared deeply for both. I worked with Fo mostly through prevention. He knew the code in and out and any other code-related documents. Sometimes I would walk by his office and see him reading the Fire Services Act, and I was like, oh, what are you looking up? He's like, oh, nothing, it's just a good read. If you've ever read that document, you kind of wonder, what the heck? But that's what made him the go-to guy in our area. Everybody would always phone him, hey, I got a question, and if he didn't know the reason or the answer for some reason, he would look it up and research it until he did. He was also very passionate about public education. And along with pub ed came materials. You know, the stuff that's all around the hall. You don't look at it twice normally, but it's tucked in a drawer in a mezzanine or in the back room. And he would never, ever throw stuff away. Like just, if you knew Forrest, he'd just save everything forever. Sorry, Anita, I can't imagine what your place looks like right now. So he loved this stuff. And we had some in the back that was actually turning color. It was brittle, and it was just like, it's time to go. We got to get rid of this stuff. But there was good information in there, so he wanted to make sure if somebody came by, we could share it. And he was always very budget conscious, never wanted to get rid of anything while there was still stuff there. So he went away for a day or two, and that's when Brennan and John and I seized the opportunity and did a little clean out of the back. Soon, the big recycle bin in the back parking lot was partly filled with this old but good prevention material. Upon Forrest's return to work, he noticed something was a little different and asked, where the heck did all the good stuff go? So we told him, and that's when he got angry, like really angry. Fo's a pretty big kid, and when he was mad, I was like, oh, I think he's actually really mad. He grabbed a stepladder, went to the back in the parking lot, climbed into the bin, and rescued that old, yellow, brittle material. And so when I watched him do it, I thought for a second, holy smokes, and I'm like, actually, he's a pretty stubborn guy. I'm not shocked that he did that. Soon after that, we had an association meeting. And that's another thing that he was always very passionate about, is the association. That's what keeps the department together. During the meeting, I had an opportunity to make a smart-ass comment about faux dumpster diving, and he tried to deny it. But the beauty of the smartphone is how quickly we can share information. And it took about 4 seconds, and everybody's phone in the room started pinging. And there you could see Forrest climbing out of the bin. Cameras on those things are amazing. He just looked up at me, smiled, and said, "Chewy," and that was it. Kind of laughed. He was a great teacher, too. Always very willing to take time out of his day, come in on his days off to help instruct, and make us all better firefighters. I looked to him when I started my career to guide me through the new firefighting world I had entered. Part of this teaching took place on my first FPOA conference. We left here early, caught the ferry, drove for quite a few hours, got to our destination and checked into the hotel. And I was like, hey, we should grab a bite to eat. You know, we've been on the road for a while. He's like, no, there's one of those no-host rooms you get to go into, and they've got a few grapes and some cheese there and a bunch of coolers full of beer, so you can have a few drinks. So we started having a few drinks, and he's introducing me to all these new people. And Forrest is a pretty big kid, so I'm trying to keep up to Forrest. And this is, remember, 15 years ago. So I'm just like, hey, man, we've got to go and get some food. He's like, no, just have a piece of cheese or a grape. You'll be fine. So a few more into it, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm really feeling this, man. We got to go get some food. And this is where one of my really teaching moments started. He put his arm around me, which was like down like this, of course, and he's like, we can't go anywhere while there's still free beer here. It's just how it is. So 15 years younger, I was like, okay, sounds like an idea. So finally, once we were the last ones there, it was time to go get some food. I was like, man, he said, okay, now we can go to the pub. So we walked over, and by then I was feeling pretty good. And he started introducing me to some firefighters, and one of the guys from one of the mainland departments was like, oh, what's your name? And I'm like, oh, it's Rob. And he's like, well, how long have you been on the job for? So remember, this is quite a few beer in. I was like, oh, I just started. I'm the Wookiee. And both him and Forrest kind of cocked their heads, and he's like, a Wookiee. So I went from Rob to Chewbacca, and then shortened to Chewie in about 3 minutes. And so for the last 15 years, that was always the first thing I heard when Forrest comes into the room. He's like, Chewie. And I mean, in the fire service, nicknames could be a lot worse. So I'm like, thank you, Forrest. I appreciate that. And he did take good care of me. I got to take care of him a few years later, because if you know Fo, you know how thorough he was. And he would research everything, just any new product. He just researched it and researched it. He could tell you where it was from, who made it, the best way to use it, how to get the best out of it. So sometimes this would backfire on him though. One night he was working in his yard and using a product called Bug Be Gone. A little while later, he started to feel unwell, and he hit up Dr. Google. So the internet's an amazing place. You can go from having a headache to needing an amputation in about 2 clicks. Well, he started clicking and printing off info and side effects and a bunch of other things that could go wrong when using this product. The next morning he came into work, did a little more research, and mentioned, he's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling that well. And we were all a little bit concerned, so I went to his office and I could see, yeah, he's feeling pretty rough. So I went down the hall to talk to the chief, and I'm like, Chief, I think we gotta take Fo to the hospital. He's not doing well. So he's like, okay, take him down to the hospital. When I walked back into his office, I noticed that he had a yellow sticky note on his chest. You guys heard this one? With the words Bug Be Gone on it. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, what the heck? And he said, well, if I go down, you'll know it was the Bug Be Gone that got me, and you could tell the doctors. Well, that's being thorough. I'm like, okay, Fo, let's just take that off and we'll take you down to the hospital. So everything turned out fine. He was good. So there's a lot more. But anyway, we always had a good time when he was around. Near the end, we would always have a few different views on certain things, but no matter what, he always showed up, helped us out, and he would definitely help me when I needed it. And right up until my last shift, we were still talking about some prevention issues that were happening in the district. He loved the fire hall and the camaraderie, and just being a firefighter. So thank you, Forrest. We miss you.
Thank you, Rob. Next, I'm going to be reading a note that came from Forrest's mom. Forrest's father, Andy Owens, and mother Sharon Rose Funk were married in Saskatchewan on August 31st, 1956. We lived in Saskatoon for about 8 or 9 months, and then we moved to a trailer in Moosomin for a job opportunity. We stayed in Moosomin while Andy worked and I was pregnant. I then moved to Moose Jaw, where I gave birth to my first son, baby boy, who was 8 pounds, 3.5 ounces. We named him Forrest Cecil Owens, after his wonderful grandfather. Forrest was a beautiful, healthy baby. When he was young, he enjoyed walks together, playing outside, and I spoiled him with hugs and affection. Grandpa Owens built a wood sled for me to pull Forrest and Todd in the winter. He also built a wagon for me to take the 2 boys shopping around town. I was always proud of my sons and soaked in the compliments of how kind and well-behaved my boys were. We will miss Forrest. He was such a fine, genuine person. During his lifetime, he was a wonderful husband, father, brother, and he had many, many friends. Forrest was the kindest person, which I believe we could all agree with on that, who lived with his wife, Gail, his daughter, Courtney, her husband, Chris, and their 2 sons, Ethan and Denver. I was visiting Forrest in Victoria and was able to catch a few of Ethan and Denver's hockey games with Forrest. Jessica and Sean have 2 daughters, Summer and Violet. I was able to spend a lovely afternoon with Forrest and Summer. Violet wasn't born at the time. They are both lovely daughters. Sean became a firefighter, just like his dad, and I know Forrest was proud of Sean for following in his footsteps. Anita and Forrest have been soulmates for 27 years. They had 2 extraordinary sons, Trevor and Jason, who have started on their own career paths. Forrest and Anita have always worked side by side, and I know how difficult this must be for her. He passed away way too young. Forrest and Anita were always there for each other and their family, which reminded me of a storybook love affair. Elliot and Andrew Owens, my other 2 sons, looked up to their brother Forrest as a role model and mentor. Although Forrest left us too soon, he left behind a lifetime of memories that we can appreciate. My second son, Todd Morgan Owens, passed away November 22nd of 2020. He was with his loving companion, Ellen, for over 25 years. They were a lovely couple. He was an inspiration to all of us, and he will always be with us and in our hearts. Forrest, your spirit is all around us. You will never be forgotten. We love you forever. You are my precious first son. I will love you forever. Love, Mom. Forrest's 2 brothers, Andy and Elliot, send their love. We love you, brother. At this time, I'd like to call on Forrest's children, Sean, Courtney, Trevor, Jason. And Jason, please.
On behalf of Courtney, Trevor, Jason, and I, we all want to thank you, Dad, for being amazing and teaching us all how to love and care so deeply. Dad loved each one of us in such a special way and had a unique relationship with all of us. Thanks for coming to share and honoring our dad today. The incredible outpouring of love from so many people has been overwhelmingly appreciated. Thank you from our family and the bottom of our hearts. I have so many amazing memories of Dad. One of my most recent was visiting in the hospital in June after he broke his pelvis. I was getting ready to go on a fishing trip up to Nootka. Dad wanted to make sure he showed me a couple things before I left that he thought would work really good up there. So he told me to bring some fish gear in the hospital, and he'd show me what I needed to know. Dad was lying in his bed after breaking his pelvis and just having surgery. And there we were, tying fishing gear in the hospital, making plans to go fishing in Renfrew, Souk, and Rivers Inlet. Dad always wanted to make sure people in his life were set up for success. While we were tying gear together, this beautiful double rainbow appeared out Dad's hospital window. It was almost like he ordered that up for us. I've always looked up to my dad and wanted to be like him. When I was a kid, I used to love going to the fire hall with Dad. One of the first things I would do was run into the truck bays, jump on the back tailboard of a truck, clip on that belt from my waist, and hang off the bumper. This is when they were still allowed to ride on the bumper. That was so cool. I really think we should look at bringing that back. After Dad passed away, I was saturated with sadness and mixed with anger. I felt cheated and robbed of future times for all of us and couldn't understand why this could happen to such a genuine man. All he was going through with his cancer in his pelvis, he was so damn positive. There was no doubt in my mind that he was going to get through this. Dad could fix anything, and he always did. He'd research it, then he'd fix it. It was just that simple for him. When it came down to repairing vehicles, lawnmowers, tractors, boats, or anything around the house, he loved that challenge and the satisfaction that followed after having fixed the issue. Whenever I talked to Dad and asked him about a problem with my own truck, he was instantly looking up videos on YouTube, searching for information, finding a blog about the issue, and sending me all these links for videos so I could sort it out. He would have already called around and gotten pricing on the parts and was eager to help me put them in. Dad used to say, why would I pay someone to fix something with their hands when I can fix them with my own hands and save all that money? Dad learned from his experiences that taking care of yourself is so important and focusing on mental health was crucial. I learned from Dad to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable is being strong. He showed me that. He had some hard times. I had some hard times a few years ago after some calls piled up on me, and I needed some time away from work to get back to a better place. Dad supported me through those times. He cared so much for everyone around him. That was an amazing quality he possessed. It made me so incredibly proud to be his son. I can't even count how many times in a roundabout way someone would find out I was Forrest's son. It was always the same response. Oh, you're Forrest's son? I know Forrest. I love Forrest. That would usually be followed up by a great story, something Dad did or how they met him. And instantly, this person I've never met all of a sudden felt like a lifelong friend. Dad made those impressions on people, and I have to be honest, it's an amazing feeling to know our dad was able to leave such a positive impact on so many people. I know Grandpa and Uncle Todd be riding Dad pretty hard about breaking his pelvis on his boat. I also know Granddad will be trying to get in his boat too, because Granddad will have already sunk his boat. Boy, I tell you, those guys will be catching some fish together. I know this hole will mend over time, but it's a massive crater in my heart right now. I keep thinking of all the future times you're going to miss out on. I don't know anything that could hurt this bad. Then I start thinking of how lucky we were to get the precious time with you that we did have. Although way too short, you had such an incredible impact on everyone you met and touched. Dad, I'm so proud of you. I miss talking to you. I miss talking to you every day. Thank you for modeling how to treat people and showing what it feels like to be truly cared about. You did that with everyone you met because you genuinely cared about others' well-being. That is a special quality we are fortunate to have witnessed, and I promise I will do my best to carry that on. As Summer and Violet have been saying, Grandpa, you'll live in our hearts forever. Love you, Dad.
I'm the second child, so my notes aren't as neat and tidy as the first child. I would normally look at you guys, but not today. Don't take it personally. I've been warned against it. I also tend to deflect with humor, something I learned from my dad, even at very inappropriate times. So bear with me. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. It was harder than I thought to write something about my dad because he was so great. Like, where do you even start? So I thought chronologically might be manageable. When I was younger, my dad made my birthday parties so fun, I think because he was always a big kid who just loved to play. He also just set up some really fun games, and he just made it really special. Dad worked on my cars growing up, and he taught me how to change the oil and the brakes on my first car. Yes, that is one of the cars that I crashed. No, it was not the brakes that failed. That one was definitely my fault. When I got married, I wanted pictures taken on a beach and on a swing and everywhere in town, really, but apparently there was no time. So my dad built a big, sturdy swing that 2 people could sit on. And I didn't know he was doing this. But the morning of my wedding, Dad and Pete, whom most of you know as Anita, Dad and Pete put the swing up on the beach on this big tree that was just waiting there for it. And we were able to take our wedding photos on a swing and at the beach. I mean, come on, like what kind of guy does that? It's amazing. It was a total surprise. And there's also a note that he wrote that might be in the other hall, but he wrote a note that said, like, leave this swing for wedding photos later today. And it was amazing. He was the kind of dad that reassured me on my wedding day, you know, I really like this guy way better than the last guy. He said, so that's good. And even though he's always really liked my husband, Chris, he's the kind of dad who still performed a criminal record check on him, just to be safe. My dad was an obvious firstborn child because he obsessed over safety, my safety more than his, but safety in general. No matter where I lived or moved, he always came over to my house and just walked straight for the smoke detectors and the fire escapes. And oh my God, I bought wall sconces once that were for uncontained pillar candles. Oh, no, 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 no. That was a mistake. He took me through all the various ways that they would surely burn my house down, so those went away. I enjoyed fishing with my dad very much, but I was on a totally different level than my brothers. I didn't get the invite that often, which, to be fair, I get because I was pretty useless on the boat. But that was my dad's fault because my dad didn't teach me how to fish like he did the boys. He taught me how to princess fish. So that's the name that I gave it after I learned what regular fishing with regular people is like. It's very boring. Princess fishing for me was when I would just lay on the boat or color until a fish was on my rod, and then he would just hand it to me and I would bring it into the boat, and then I could go back to fishing or laying under the boat. So yeah, the only part that was not very princessy was on his first boat, and I had to go to the bathroom and he handed me a bucket. But we moved on. The feelings about my dad's untimely death are all over the place and really hard to handle at times, and I feel for every single one of us going through this because he made such an impact. But as much as I can, I plan to focus on how fortunate I am to have called the man we all knew as Forrest Owens, my daddy-o.
Today we celebrate the life of a person who symbolizes what it is to love. Evidence of life well lived is found in those who love you. The legacy of love is all the proof that's needed. I always remember nights before fishing derbies. We'd stay up till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, knowing we'd have to be up at 2:30 and on the water by 3. We'd sit at the dining room table with Mom's nail polish in hand, painting heads, joking about whose lure is going to catch the bigger fish. We'd tie and retie lures for hours on end. It would always pay off come weigh-in. He was a legend on the water and on dry land. My dad was the most caring, kind-hearted individual you ever meet. My dad was my best friend, greatest role model. He was an amazing dad, coach, mentor, firefighter, husband, and friend. But most of all, my dad's greatest legacy was teaching us to enjoy life.
Forrest has always been that same kind and gentle, generous, loving person that he was on July 21st, 2022. I came across a card that I gave to Forrest 27 and a half years ago, before we were married, and in it I had wrote, "Forrest, I love you so much. I can't believe that a love this wonderful and special could ever exist, but I know that it does. You have given me so much that I'm thankful for. Your friendship, your laugh, your thoughtfulness, your support, your smile, your voice, your shoulder, your arms to fall into, your hopes and dreams to share, and your love. Forrest, you are everything to me. I will love you forever. Anita." I could have written that note anytime. It was just who he was. And so today, I write him again. "My dearest Forrest, I love you so much. I can't believe that a love this wonderful and special could ever exist, but I know that it does. I keep asking you to come back to me, but I know that you can't. I'll probably continue to ask anyways, because you always find a way to make my dreams come true. Thank you, Forrest. You did so much for so many. I know very well how hard you worked, how much you gave of your time and of yourself in so many ways, and then still somehow had time to give more. You cared deeply for people and wouldn't miss even the smallest opportunity to connect with someone. Thank you for teaching me that. Forrest, please guide us with your amazing light and to see the path ahead. I have no idea how we are supposed to go on without you. Please watch over me and the 4 beautiful children you created and their families. Thank you for being our angel. Once again, Forrest, you are the lead and selflessly taking care of all of us. There are so many people here on earth that love you and miss you, and I know they too will help us find our way, and we will help each other. Forrest, we had something very, very special. Thank you for giving me the best life, the best family, and the best friends, and the best love anyone could ever have. I miss you holding my hand the way that you do, and I miss you telling me 100 times a day how much you love me. Forrest, you are everything to me. I will love you forever. I love you, Forrest, to heaven and back until we're together again. Rest easy, my love, and please visit often. I love you, babe.
Thank you, Anita, Sean, Courtney, Trevor, and Jason. At this time, I would like to ask for Bruce Alexander to come on up and share a couple of words.
Good afternoon, Bruce Alexander. I am honored and incredibly proud to be able to call Forrest my extraordinary friend. September 6th, 1971. I'd recently moved out here, a place I'd never heard of, Central Saanich. What was that? I'd be attending a new school, Mount Newton Junior High School. I didn't know anybody. I was 13 years old, and I was terrified. It was that day that Forrest, along with Tom and Bill, instantly befriended me. Friendship's an odd thing. You just randomly pick another human being and say, yep, I think I like this one. Never could I have imagined that that random pick would lead to a 50-year friendship, a bond that would last a lifetime. Everyone loves Forrest. How could you not? Forrest has this amazing gift, this ability to just meet you, and immediately you become a friend. As I look around this room, and I see so many familiar faces, the impact Forrest had in all our lives is obvious. If anybody embodies the meaning of true friendship, it is Forrest. He's compassionate, trustworthy, selfless, honorable, humorous, and we've heard it all afternoon. Above all, Forrest is a kind man. We literally grew up together, a group of buddies, a group of friends. We were inseparable. Our high school years and teenage years were filled with sports, laughter, and fun. We played floor hockey every day in the gym. We learned to cook. We were in Mrs. Baba's home ec class. We didn't just boil water and make cookies. We were making wonton soup and sweet and sour sauce. We went to all of the high school dances. For those of you who don't know it, this is where Forrest discovered and earned his nickname, Crazy Legs. We started going to a lot of, we occasionally went to the weekend parties. Problem was we were underage. Forrest had the solution, fake ID. He made it himself, it was brilliant. He became our unofficial bootlegger. Sunday Seahawk games, we heard it earlier, they were legendary. And by the way, if you're not a Seahawk fan, you're definitely not going to heaven. Countless road trips, Seattle, Vancouver, and our monthly poker games. Forrest, he could bluff. We didn't know if he had the full house, the royal flush. He inevitably won almost every hand. There are thousands of hilarious stories and memories. We laughed a lot, and we shared in all of each other's successes and disappointments. Forrest is a brilliant guy. We heard about it again all day. Certainly in our group of friends, without exception, he was the most likely to succeed. All through school, I would take the easy courses, not Forrest. He would sign up for physics, chemistry, biology, calculus. I couldn't even pronounce them, but he excelled at them all. He was brilliant. Forrest was playing with computers in the 70s before we were even talking about computers. I know it was mentioned earlier, but Forrest was an incredible lacrosse player. He used to go down over here to the lacrosse box at Centennial Park. Hours and hours he would practice, perfecting his game. He was the best I ever saw. He was absolutely the greatest. Forrest had a habit of succeeding at anything that he set his mind to. He approached everything with enthusiasm, passion, and his very witty, clever humor. As we grew from teenagers to young adults, normally school friends tend to drift apart. Our group of friends remained tight. We supported each other through our careers, relationships, marriages. We were in each other's wedding parties, even a couple of breakups. These things happen. But the most significant achievement we celebrated together was the birth of our children. To this day, my children, our children, he's Uncle Forrest. We've always been there for each other. It was said earlier, Steve, you talked about it, Forrest's greatest love has always been his family. Forrest loves and adores his family. Forrest and Gail still share a wonderful friendship. Sean, Courtney, Trevor, Jason, what can I say? Your dad absolutely, unconditionally worships you. He's so very proud to be your father. Anita, his soulmate in every sense of the word. I clearly remember Forrest sharing a story with me after one of your first dates. He had this sparkle in his eye as he told me about this amazing woman he had just met. Here we are 27 years later, and that beautiful sparkle is never dimmed. Day-to-day life has a way of getting in the way of important things that truly matter. Forrest and I could go months, sometimes longer, without connecting at all. But without missing a beat, we'd chat on the phone or we'd get together for lunch, and we'd just pick right up as if it was yesterday. A few weeks ago, we did speak on the phone. We hadn't seen each other nearly enough, obviously with lockdowns and all the recent silliness. We arranged a dinner for our group to finally get together, a long overdue visit. We were very excited to reconnect in person, but all Forrest wanted to talk about was fishing. He was slaying the halibut and the chinook. We shared a few other stories about what was happening in our lives, but he inevitably circled back to fishing. People come and go in and out of our lives. Seldom does someone leave a meaningful impression. Forrest is one of those rare exceptions in individuals. a true friend who has left a permanent mark on all of our lives forever. I know I speak for the room, Forrest. We all love you very much. Forrest, I miss you, bud. Thank you for being my extraordinary, lifelong friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Next up, Mark Kosick.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be here, and thanks for Sean for inviting me up. Forrest is a very special man. I had the honor of, he coached with my dad when we were little kids in hockey and lacrosse. And even today, I've seen many kids off those teams here today. Like everybody knows, Forrest is a very quiet, soft-spoken man, very humble. And while all those attributes are true, he also, when the time comes to it and it gets competitive, is very fiery, intense, and has a huge will to win. I learned a lot from Forrest in those years in hockey and lacrosse. And it hasn't been till maybe 5 or 6 years ago where we started to do quite a bit of fishing together. And I have a few quick stories to tell about some of our adventures. One is a story of complete selflessness that you might find some humor in, and 3 quick fishing stories. So Forrest and I, this is going back a few years ago, we were gonna fish in this derby called the Can-Am Fishing Derby. It was a 2-day derby. And yeah, we were gonna fish off of my boat, and so it was all ready to go, but I was out fishing on it, and the alarm kept going off on in my engine. And you know, so I pull it out of the water, and who am I gonna call? The same thing that his son Sean just said is Forrest. He can fix anything. And yeah, I'm gonna call him up, and I did. I call him up, and I remember this very clearly. He answers on the first ring, and he's like, and Forrest is like, "Hey, Mark, what's going on?" There's something off with his voice, but I kind of didn't say anything about it. I was like, "Oh, hey, man, like, I'm hearing some weird rattling in my engine. Is there any, what do you think? What do you think it could be? Or is there any time you have in the next couple of weeks to come over and check it out?" Like, again, we weren't fishing for close to a month in the derby. And Forrest is kind of sounding a little bit off. He's a little bit quiet. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, man? Everything okay?" And he's, "Yo, no, everything's okay. I'm just kind of, I got a problem with my septic system, and I don't know if it's a tree root that's growing through it or what it is, but, you know, Anita's going to be so mad. She's going to be home in 2 hours. I'm trying to fix this. I'm literally covered in crap, for a better word." And I'm like, okay, hey, get off the phone with me. Like, go back to it, or better yet, Forrest, why don't you call somebody, come and call a plumber, somebody that can come and fix it properly. And again, Sean, exactly what he said, Forrest said to me, he's like, "Mark, why would I call somebody to fix it and pay for somebody to fix it when I can do it myself?" And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, Anita's almost on the way home. She's coming home. He's really panicking about that. And I'm like, "Okay, Forrest, get off the phone with me right now. Okay, see you later. Talk to you later." The phone goes quiet for about 3, 4, 5 seconds. And I'm like, "Forrest? He goes, "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Click." So just the complete selflessness. And I'm like, so I call him 2 or 3 times. I'm like, "Forrest, no. Forrest, I want to tell him, don't come over here." So sure enough, 15 minutes later, me and my wife see him lean over the back of our boat with the engine cover off the boat. And I'm like, "Forrest, what are you doing, man? You shouldn't be here." He's like, comes up with some bogus excuse of why he's there. In terms of I think I knew what was wrong with the engine, but I was gonna forget about it, so I had to come out and help. So 3 quick fishing stories to tell you. The first one is, and again, for the people that have fished with them, some of these will be more funny than others, but they're not meant to just be funny. But first one, Forrest had, with me anyway, did not like to dress according to what the weather was going to be. So the first one is, we're in this 2-day fishing derby, and again, the times are from 5 a.m. till 7 p.m. It's like a complete 14-hour day. And we're out there, and my boat's 16 feet, not very much cover, and the forecast is calling for rain. And it is pouring out. So if I can do it justice, it's not raining down, it's raining directly 180 degrees right sideways at us. And and it's cold, it's a north wind, we are absolutely freezing. And neither one of us are gonna complain, but I'm like, hey, Forrest, I got rain gear right up front. You're welcome to throw it on, or, if you want to come, I have a little park cuddy on my boat, you want to sit there. But no, of course, he had to always be right close to his downrigger, because any second the fish was going to come off. So Forrest is soaking wet. He doesn't want to get the rain gear. He's soaking wet. You can tell what year the quarter is in his front pocket in his jeans. He's wearing his rubber boots, jeans, and a jacket, and I'm like, so it's quiet. We're not saying a word. No one's saying, it's so cold you can't even really talk. Like, I'm certainly not thinking about fishing. So I'm waiting for him to say something, and I know how cold I am, and Forrest is down, and he's like, never really used rain gear, Mark. And I'm like, okay, well, it's the first time for everything, buddy, and you want to go out there and use it? Again, 5 minutes goes by again. He's like, yeah, I never really used it. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, Forrest suffers through the whole day, and the next day comes. The weather's calling for extreme rain again, but now it's 5 a.m. and it's dark, but I see he got down to the boat a little bit before me, and I can see him kind of shuffling down the dock, and I see something under his arm, which to me looks like green rubber rain gear. And sure enough, I can see him. I don't say a word. I see him shuffle it and hide it up front in the boat. It's not raining. It gets to be about 7:30 in the morning, and certainly you can almost hear the thunder coming. It's going to start raining. I go up to the front of the boat, put my rain gear on, because I know how cold I was yesterday, and I don't certainly want to start the day getting wet. And Forrest then goes, I brought some rain gear today. And I'm like, oh, good. You're getting smarter. And he goes, I'm probably not going to use it, though. And he didn't. It rained all day, and he left it up front. So stubbornness was definitely something that... Okay, next story, my second to last one here, is this a lot of people can attest to, is Forrest's willingness to go out in any weather condition. Maybe it comes back from his days commercial fishing with his dad, Andy, I don't know. But he'll go out in anything, and his refusal to come home at the end of the night, especially if the fishing's good. So in this day, my boat's parked, a little 16-foot aluminum boat's parked out in Souk. And Forrest I go to his house, I jump in his truck, and we're gone. Onto the highway, he's full speed ahead to Souk. I'm like, Forrest, the weather doesn't look good. He's like, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll go down. I can feel his truck going side to side on the highway. The wind's pushing us. And the rule of thumb for us was, back in the day, was when you go by the Souk Basin and you can see any kind of white water or any kind of white caps on the Souk Basin, on the open ocean it's going to be completely nasty. So we're driving up, and sure enough, I'm cranking my head to go and look at what I see. And what do I see? I don't even see any blue. I only see white. That's it. It's nasty out there. And I'm like, Forrest, let's turn around, man. Like, this isn't, this isn't smart. Let's just go. We'll come back another day. We can still probably do something with our day. It's, safety as well. And he's like, well, and this is what he liked to say to a lot of guys fishing. He's like, well, let's go down around the corner and let's poke our nose out. He'd love to say, let's poke our nose around the corner. I go, if we poke our nose around the corner, our nose is going to get ripped right off. And sure enough, we should pull up to the marina, and all the big guide boats with the 32-foot huge fishing vessels are all coming back in. They're walking down the dock. I'm walking right by them, and a couple of them say to me, where the heck are you guys going? And I'm like, I go with them, I go, I honestly have no idea. And I'm following Forrest marching with his tackle box in one hand and his fishing rod in the other, right by these guys, right to the boat. And I'm like, oh man, here we go. So we get out around Whiff and Spit, and I'm driving the boat, and I'm not happy with Forrest, and it's dangerous, and I'm like, we're not really talking, and I'm surging up and down in the waves, trying to keep the boat from turning over. And Forrest is like, says the next thing, he says, you know, Mark, so what do you think? And I go, what do I think? I'm like, what do you mean, what do I think? And he's like, that's not too bad, eh? I'm like, oh my gosh. So we get out to Otter Point. It should only take about 20 minutes to get there, but with the weather, it's well over an hour. So by the time we finally pull up there, it's well past 6:30, and there's not another boat on the water except this 16-foot tinny that we're in. And we get out there, and he tells a story a lot of fishing with my dad at the Trap Shack back when they were younger, about how they couldn't stand up in the boat and they were only on their knees, and it was big fish after big fish, and they were falling down the whole time. And well, this story is very similar to that, where it was one fish after the other, but it's starting to get a little bit later now. And you know, we'd released a ton of fish, had an unbelievable day, and I'm like, Forrest, let's get out of here with our lives. We've had a crazy day. What a memory this has been. And you know, let's what do you say, one more fish? And Forrest is like, I can see he's a little bit aggravated with me. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So sure enough, we get another fish in the boat, about 15 minutes later. And I'm excited. I'm like more excited about we can get going home because it's starting to get dark out. It's now it's the end of August. It's all getting close to 9 o'clock. And I'm starting to take my flasher off of my rod, and I'm going to put it all away. And what do I hear? I hear some rustling around in the back of the boat. He's down on his knees again. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And sure enough, there he is, putting his rod and downrigger straight back down to where the fish were. And I'm like, oh my goodness, all right. So there we go. A couple of fish later. Now it's past 9 o'clock and it's pitch black. And it is rough out. It has not stopped. And I'm like, Forrest, what do you think, man? It's time we start thinking about heading in. And Forrest looks at me, he's like, yeah, I guess we could start to think about it. And I'm like, sure enough, that's Forrest in a nutshell, in rough weather and refusal of wanting to go in. My last quick story is one that was, I guess it would have been a couple of summers ago now. And he was a little bit beat up. He'd just gotten back from the interior and fighting the wildfires. They were going, he was hurting and he was beat up. And so we were out fishing at Coal Island. And Forrest was, I was like, Forrest, man, like, it's unreal that you're still going and doing that, but maybe, I don't know how the fire hall works or how the system works, but couldn't you leave some of that maybe to the younger guys, and let them go? He's like, oh no, Mark, the guys need my help and this and that. And I'm like, well, even better yet, man, like, why don't you start to maybe think about retirement a little bit? Like, you'd be able to spend a whole bunch of time with Anita and do a whole bunch of fishing, and he never really said anything else about it. So pretty much exactly a month later, we're still fishing at Coal Island, and I had deja vu. It was the exact same spot that I first said this to him. And Forrest goes to me, Mark, I've talked to Anita a lot, and you know what? I'm going to retire. And I was so happy for him. And I was like, oh, that's so great. He's like, I'm still going to be able to work and help the boys out. He always took all his partners, the boys and the fellas, and going to help them out. And, I'm like, that's great, buddy. I'm so happy for you. So what are you going to do in your retirement? He's like, and always with Anita, of course. He's like, Anita and I, we're going to do just a whole bunch of fishing, and we'd also really like to do some traveling. And my excitement went to quietness. And as much as I thought I knew Forrest as a kid when we grew up, to my times fishing with him, I just did not see him as a traveling type. And I played many years in hockey overseas, and I know there's some awesome countries to go to and museums and stuff to see like that. I'm thinking maybe Maybe he wants to just do this for Anita. Or maybe he wants to broaden his horizons and see other things. I don't know, but it's not, something didn't sit well with me. I just didn't see it. So I literally think to myself for a good 5 minutes. Forrest is working away with his gear on the other side of the boat. And I go to him, hey, Forrest, where are you guys going to go traveling? And he says to me, oh, you know, me and Anita, we'd like to head west a little bit. Port Renfrew, Banfield, Eucula. So I literally dropped to my knees in hysterical laughter. And part of the funniest part for me was Forrest had no idea why I was laughing until I finally explained to him, like, Forrest, traveling to regular people means, you know, France, Italy, Spain, stuff like that. And then he starts, and everybody knows here, everybody in this room knows Forrest's laughter. And it's contagious. And he just starts belly laughing, and we're both laughing together. So Forrest gave us a new definition of traveling that day. Thanks a lot for having me up here. God bless everybody in this room, and of course Forrest as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up is Mike Stutzel.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank Sean and Anita for inviting me up, and it's such an honor to speak to everybody. I do have a couple stories, and I'm actually going to save the really long one for in the reception, if that's okay. You know, Forrest being the selfless person he is, seeing all his boys dressed in winter jackets here in this room, I'm sure that's what he would want. I met Forrest. I still remember meeting him. I became best friends with Sean, again, through hockey. And the first time I met Forrest, this, 8 or 10 years old, this mountain of a man comes in, giant hands, wraps his whole hand up to your elbow, and shakes your hand. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is so scary. And it takes about 20 seconds to see that sparkle in his eye, and realize he's just a gentle giant. As Steve mentioned earlier, Forrest fell off his boat and broke his pelvis beginning of June, and I hadn't known yet. And I texted him, and I said, I'm having problems with my motor. This is the problem. And he took a picture of him in a hospital bed, and he goes, oh, I just fell off the boat. I'm in the hospital bed. I'm going to be laid up for a bit. I'm going in for surgery in the next couple of days. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, Forrest, I'm so sorry. Like, is there anything I can do? And he goes, he didn't really say much. He would never ask for help. And June 8th, when I think he's in surgery, I get a text asking what noise it's making. Could be this, could be that. So he obviously spent time on the internet there. And I just, I'll finish with a short story, again, fishing related, but he never asks for anything, but through conversations on his boat, I knew that the special type of fishing we do in Campbell River is the most difficult way to catch a salmon with no bait, no attractor. You're not allowed to jig. You have to sit in a rowboat and drag a lure from the 1940s around. And to become a lifetime member, that fish has to be over 30 pounds. A lot of people spend their entire life trying to catch one. And Forrest knows all this, but he's extremely lucky, and even more so positive and skillful at fishing. Well, he came up, Anita and him came up overnight, and sure enough, I got 2 rod holders, another gentleman named Trevor, not his son, and Forrest are holding the rods. And and Trevor's line, it's getting dark on the last night that Forrest was up there, and Trevor's rod just buried. And Trevor stands up and he starts playing this fish, and he's very animated, almost like a thinner Chris Farley. Everything's jerky and the boat's rocking, and Forrest is just calm and cool and starts to bring up his line, and I go to take off the weight off his line, and it gets ripped out of my hand. And I was like, Forrest, you have a fish too. Doesn't say much, he just remains seated and calm, and Trevor's yelling directions, which way it's going and everything like that, and I net it, and Forrest still hasn't said a thing. And he's just calm and cool, and I look at his rod and look at him and where the fish is and everything. I'm like, Forrest, you got a big fish on, don't you? He's like, oh yeah. And it was a pretty special fish. It was 37.5 pounds, and he became a life member, and it's a very special fish for me. And yeah, it sucks that we can't do it any more years, but I'll miss him dearly, and I'll save some funnier stories for at the reception. But thank you again for having me up here.
Thank you, Mike. Next up will be Wayne Hopkins.
Thank you very much. I had the privilege and the honor to meet Forrest many years ago through hockey. First, it was through the Island Stars Spring Hockey League and then Victoria Racquet Club. I used to bug Forrest that it was my fault that he had to leave Peninsula Minor Hockey. When Anita first came to me and asked me if I would speak today, of course I was honored, but I also didn't know exactly what I would say. I could do the typical, he was a great guy, one of a kind, caring, soft-spoken, but it seemed like everything I wrote down ended with me laughing. Those that know Forrest know that he was hilarious. There wasn't very many circumstances and situations where I didn't have Forrest laughing or you weren't laughing. Forrest made everybody around him laugh. Forrest made himself laugh, which then made you laugh. Sometimes you'd even know why he was laughing and you started laughing. That's the Forrest I'm going to talk about today. The Forrest who made me laugh, the Forrest in hockey. When I first met Forrest, he came onto a team with Trevor, and he was hockey dad. That was his only role. It didn't take long for that role to expand. Little did we know at the time that he had experience coaching before he had kids, and then he had experience coaching both Sean and Courtney. Forrest coached Sean in hockey and lacrosse for many years, and I understand that he actually coached Courtney in the one lacrosse game that she played. And not a surprise to many that know her, she spent most of that game in the penalty box. As you can imagine, Forrest probably loved it. In addition to a hockey dad, he became our safety person, our first responder, our medical provider, our bus driver, our stick boy, and assistant coach. His roles never ended. He was always the assistant coach that the boys could rely on to be positive, see the positive, pick them up, get them ready for the game. He was always the last person to speak to the boys after the coach came in between periods. He'd often have some of his motivational speeches. Come on, boys. Shucks, you can do this. Let's get this train rolling. We're just a few of them. It was so corny, but the boys loved it. Forrest always seemed to be the guy that could bring the kids up and who understood the kids and what they needed. Well, almost always. The boys reminded me of an event. They were at a game. Supposedly they weren't playing very good, and they were waiting for the coach to come in, probably to yell or freak out or something. Coach didn't go in. He was too frustrated. Door opens. Who walks in but Forrest? You could see the relief in all the boys' eyes. It was Forrest. It's going to be a motivational speech. It's going to be a shucks. Come on, boys. Not that day. The boys met a different kind of Forrest who started to use colorful language and yelling. Well, those who know him, yelling the way Forrest yelled. Once he leaves, he made his point, Trevor turns to his teammate and go, with eyes wide open, "My dad swore. He never swears." All the boys started to laugh. It is worth noting that all Forrest wanted to do the rest of the game was go and apologize to the boys for yelling. Forrest didn't do anything halfway, as has been mentioned. When he was driving the bus for the team, he was focused on driving the bus. He had his coveralls to make sure it was ready to go in the morning. He had all the extra fluids and whatever mechanical things he thought this old bus could use. The bus was old. It was a standard, and according to him, it wasn't a very easy drive. We'll just say that the bus and Forrest didn't get along most of the time. You would often hear gears grinding as Forrest is driving the bus. Under his breath, behind the wheel, you'd hear him swearing and laughing at the same time. You'd smell the clutch fumes coming through the bus, and the whole time you hear the boys cheering him on with, "Go, Forrest, go!" He'd be laughing, swearing the whole time. When Forrest was present, he was always present. When he was the bus driver, that would be his focus. When he was giving medical advice, he was always on his game. Once again, almost always. A few weeks ago, when he and I were having a visit, we started reminiscing a little bit about some different things, and he brought up this one story that I'm going to go into. Him and I were laughing like it had just happened the day before. Anita walked back into the room, and I'm pretty sure she thought we were crazy. We were at a tournament somewhere in the interior of Alberta, and early in the third period, one of the players goes down hard, hits the boards or gets hit. Out Forrest goes, picks the player up, takes him off directly to the dressing room. A few minutes go by. I go in the dressing room to see how the player is, and Forrest, in his very calm manner, takes me aside and goes, "Wayne, he's not good." He goes, "I can see fluid in his ears. I need to take him to emergency." Wow, that's serious. So we run around, get the car keys for the rental car. We get the player's BC medical card. I said, "Okay, Forrest, you go to the hospital. I'll be right behind you." As I'm leaving the room, he's collecting the player's belongings and getting ready to go. I return to the bench, and the head coach says, "How's the player?" I said, "It's not good. Forrest said he could see fluid in his ears. He's taking him to emergency. Sounds serious." We were concerned, but he was in great hands. A couple minutes later, that same player walks in front of the bench, fully dressed, ready to go back out. We look down at the player, we look at each other, and we look to the end of the bench. There's Forrest, big huge smile on his face, big thumbs up, and said, "He's good to go, coach." There was some confusion. So I walk to the end of the bench, I go, "Forrest, what about the fluid in the ears?" He goes, "It's all good, Wayne. I didn't have my glasses on." We started laughing on the bench. The coaches were laughing. It was hilarious. On another trip, Forrest proved that once a first responder, always a first responder, even while he's being a coach. We had to stay an extra night in a hotel in Vancouver because we had lost but we missed the ferry schedule. So all the boys were in the pool, splashing, having a good time. All the parents and siblings were around the pool. And I believe Sean had joined us that weekend. And little brother Jason wanted to be part of the fun. He wanted Sean to throw him into the pool with the rest of the boys. Jason, who had on a snorkel and a mask. I don't know why to this day. Anyway, Sean, being the Big brother he is, picks him up and tosses him into the pool. Big splash. What Sean didn't realize that day is Jason wasn't a strong swimmer at that point. Within minutes, Jason's in trouble. Anita yells out Forrest. Forrest sees what's going on, fully clothed, including a jacket. He jumps into the pool, arms spread out, legs, he's in, under the water he goes, big splash. Another big splash as he comes out of the water. Jason in one hand, his fire department phone in the other. Gets Jason into Anita's caring hands, turns around and says, "Anybody have any rice? This isn't my phone, it's the fire department's." One aspect of Forrest that I learned very early on when I met him was his devotion to his family. Anita, Trevor, Jason, Sean, and Courtney. It simply is who Forrest was. We always joked that Anita was with him even when she wasn't. On another road trip many years ago, this one required Forrest to drive for 2 days, and it had an overnight stop. And as I mentioned, his relationship with the bus was not necessarily a strong one. Forrest hadn't shaved in a few days, he was tired, and he was definitely in road trip mode. When the team was on the road, I would often, every morning, sit down and write a little email to the parents, tell them about the day's events yesterday and what's coming up this day. And I tried to keep it light. The morning after we arrived in this long destination, I sat in my breakfast room by myself early in the morning and did up the email. I think I thanked Forrest for getting us all there safe and sound. And that amount of driving, that distance, really took its toll on Forrest. He looked like he'd been on a bender. Unshaven, lots of white stubble, hair sticking out from his hat, driving clothes from 2 days of driving. And I'm reminded by Anita that I think I also attached a picture just to drive home the point of what Forrest looked like. I believe I said in the email that we wondered if we'd picked up a homeless guy or maybe a homeless Santa due to all the white stubble and how tired he looked. A few minutes later, after I send the email, Forrest walks into the breakfast room and he says to me in his stoic voice, "So, you sent out the email?" I said, "Yeah, and you were in it." He goes, "I know. I just heard from Anita. She was pretty clear I need to clean myself up." We started to laugh. And of course, I egged him on. I said, "What are you talking about? Anita's not here. This is a boys' trip." I said, "If you want to look like a homeless Santa, be a homeless Santa." He laughed and he talked tough, because of course she's not there. "Yeah, I'm not going to shave until I get home. I'm my own man. She's not the boss of me." Topic changed for a few minutes to the day ahead, and he says to me, "So what time are we leaving?" I said, "Maybe 20, 30 minutes. He goes, "Crap," jumps up. "I got to go. I need to shower, change, and clean myself up." I looked at him. He started to laugh. As he's walking away, he's just laughing. For those that know Forrest, you know that Anita had a special place in his heart. He would talk about her just in general conversation. You could tell the bond was something special, and the spark for Anita was as strong as it ever been. In fact, I was very fortunate to experience that fondness firsthand myself, and it proved that his motor was still running for Anita. Our team had just won the Island Finals. It was a big celebration. The entire team, players, coaches, siblings, we all went to the keg for a big celebration. Everybody was having a great time, and all the moms were cajoled into doing a certain type of shooter or shot. I can't say the name of the shot because of the situation we're in, but it required all the mums, and in this case Anita, to put her hands behind her back, using only her mouth and her face, had to get through a bunch of whipped cream to a shot and shoot it. It was quite a sight to see generally, and Forrest really enjoyed it. He gets out his phone, devilish little smile on his face, and sends a short text to her. "I can't wait to get you home tonight." Only issue is he sent it to me. Again, he went into a full-out howl and laughter when I responded with, "You too, big guy." He started laughing so hard, I was laughing hard, everybody was laughing. Most people didn't know they were laughing. It was just infectious. I could stand up here for literally hours and talk about different stories. We had so many times together. All the support he gave to everybody around him, especially the kids. All the kind words, always finding the positive. His devotion to his family, friends, community, and all the multiple roles that he played. But for me, it was the laughing. Forrest had a spectacular laugh. He was frickin' hilarious. And we lost a giant. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Next up will be Cal Russell.
Good afternoon. My name is Cal Russell, and it is my pleasure to speak on behalf of a group that has had the privilege of getting to know Forrest in another part of his life that was extremely important to him. It is a group of guys that regularly get together to have a few drinks, share a few stories, and support each other outside our jobs. This is where I first got to know Forrest. When Rob Juanda, who organizes these social events, first invited me to one of these gatherings, I was unsure of the criteria to be included in this group. At first glance around the room, I noticed a bunch of funny, outgoing guys who were very good at drinking beer. Now, I'm neither of those things, but they welcomed me with smiles, cheers, and funny conversation. It didn't take me long to figure out what made this group click. The criteria for inclusion in this group was not the ability to consume large quantities of beer, but a strong belief in the importance of family, community, and specifically youth sports. Suppose we had to advertise this group, Forrest would have been our poster boy. Today I'm speaking for this group of dads and coaches who, over the years, have developed friendships that keep us connected even as our children have grown up and moved on to other stages of their lives. Forrest was a big part of this group. As I got to know him, it was immediately noticeable that he was proud of his kids and loved his family, but he still was interested in my kids. He was passionate about sports, or at least hockey, lacrosse, and fishing, and he was committed to the community and making it a better place for everyone, especially those kids he coached. When asked to speak about Forrest, I started to think about what made Forrest such a successful father, coach, friend, and community leader. Whenever I think of success and leadership, I often refer to John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. John Wooden was the legendary UCLA basketball coach that set the standard for coaches are measured in all sports, not only in terms of victories and championships, but in also how they develop players' character and integrity. He set the bar high for coaches to be positive mentors and leaders. I have this Pyramid of Success poster in my office for years. When I started to think how I would describe Forrest, I thought of words like loyal, calm, and respectful. All these adjectives were used by John Wooden to build his building blocks for his Pyramid of Success. Since I'm speaking for a larger group, I thought I would ask some of the members of the Coaches Club, which we came to call it, how they would describe Forrest in 3 words. Paul Collins said patient, integrity, and honorable. Dale Gordon, gentle, witty, caring. Rob Juanda, teacher, magnetic, friend. Ralph Rygrock, patient, mellow, caring. Wade Murray, generous, thoughtful, kind. Alex Young, awesome, dedicated, jovial. Pat Cullen, patient, integrity, and handsome. Ross Isherwood, loyal, team, funny. Andy Thompson, Grace Under Pressure. Steve Wagner epitomized the quiet, strong motivator. As each person sent me their adjectives to describe Forrest, I was checking my boxes off on John Wooden's building Pyramid of Success. It was very impressive how many boxes Forrest ticked. I'm not sure that Forrest ever read or studied John Wooden's philosophy, but the way he coached and treated people matches perfectly what we should strive to be when coaching, parenting, or leading people. Forrest approached everything with integrity, class, and dignity. Last week, a few of the coaches club stopped by the Owens house to help the family make a few repairs to the porch and yard. We know that Forrest has built a strong family and a network of friends that will continue to support each other and his family. This is what makes the Peninsula a great place to live, and this is why the Coaches Club continues to meet. We all know that youth sports are important for our children, but they are also important for adults. It creates another strong bond for adults, and it helps build a stronger community, a community that Forrest helped make stronger in so many ways. I feel honored to have had the opportunity to speak on behalf of the coaches and dads who called Forrest friend. I feel fortunate to have had the opportunity to get to know Forrest, and I'm positive that Forrest has made us better coaches, friends, fathers, and men. The Coaches Club's children are all now young adults, but we continue to meet. At our next gathering, we will share Forrest's stories and honor him. Forrest will always have a seat at our coaches' table, and his presence and influence will always be with us. He will be missed, but never forgotten.
Thank you, Cal. Next up, this will be our final speaker of the afternoon, Justin Cowden.
Uncle Forrest became my uncle in 1978 when he married my Aunt Gail. And like so many other people here today, I was blessed to be close to him. He was a mentor to me too. You know, whenever we needed some help with the tree forts or the go-karts, or Uncle Forrest is coming over. You know, he used to drive us around in his truck, and he'd let us push the gas pedal. We're like 6 years old. Ah! But he was just so cool. I have like some really good stories about fishing and stuff like that too. I think I'm gonna save them for the reception later. But I wanted to thank Anita and the kids for letting me say a few words. I lost a major idol, and it's so shocking to me. And it's a fitting celebration today for him, because he was larger than life. He was a superhero. We thought he was a real superhero. He used to carry us around like we were just, yeah. So many memories of Uncle Forrest, and rest in peace. I love you. Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. Alrighty, at this time there's going to be a slide show, followed by the pipe band and a few more presentations. At this time, the pipe band will be performing Amazing Grace. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I would like to call up Stacy Lee, Steve Serbic, Brennan Gummer, and Dan Little. This is the bell ceremony. A traditional bell ringing ceremony at the end of the church service or committal service usually signifies the firefighter's last alarm. A short reading accompanies the ringing of the bell. The men and women of today's fire service are confronted with more dangerous and work environment than ever before. We are forced to continually change our strategies and tactics to accomplish our tasks. Our methods may change, but our goals remain the same as they were in the past: to save lives and to protect property, sometimes at a terrible cost. This is what we do. This is our chosen profession. This is the tradition of the firefighter. The service of today is ever-changing, but it is steeped in traditions 200 years old. One such tradition is the sound of the bell. In the past, as the firefighters began their tour of duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of the day's shift. Throughout the day and night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which summoned these brave souls to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizens. And when the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that signaled to all the completion of the call. When a firefighter had passed in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, it was the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols which reflect honor and respect on those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls had for their duty, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represents the end of our comrades' duties, and they will be returning to the quarters. And so, to those who have selflessly given their lives for the good of fellow man, their tasks completed, their duties well done, to our comrades, their last alarm, they are going home.
Central Saanich Fire, please prepare to receive a final page. Assistant Chief Forrest Owens, this is your final page. You've done all you can do. You have proudly served the citizens and visitors of Central Saanich for over 35 years. You've given so much of yourself to help others, and you have succeeded. You've done an outstanding job. Assistant Chief Owens, you are a leader, and now it's time to lead from afar, as we are certain you will do. The community will always be grateful for your dedicated service. You will be remembered for your devotion to your family, friends, community, and career. You will be missed. Assistant Chief Forrest Owens, you are clear to return home. May you rest in peace. Timeout 1444.
Thank you. I'd just like to finish on page 4 of the program today, a quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza. It says, "Wouldn't it be a great idea to start every day by asking yourself, what would be the greatest expression of myself that I can present to the world today? And then make a choice not to get up until you are that person. This is the beginning of greatness. May the forest be with you." On behalf of Anita and her family, they would like to thank everyone that made everything possible here today. There was an enormous amount of effort put into making today totally incredible, an incredible special for Forrest. And we thank each and every one of you for your love and commitment to this day. Thank you to all the guests and the speakers. It means the absolute world to the family. That concludes the service, and we can now make our way to the reception next door in the main fairgrounds. Thank you.